Oi mate, who's waiting on that Space Marine gaff, ain't ya? Well, them gits ain't got none on us. That's right, come on over here and we'll get you duckering in no time. We Orc flyboys are the bestest with duckering and booming. That, I imagine, is how an Orc recruitment drive would go in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, just with more clubs and bonking you over the head before stuffing you, screaming, into the cockpit of a jet that looks more at home in a scrapyard than having any business being in the air. And if you buy into that, then you ought to be buying into the Switch release of Warhammer 40,000 Dakka Squadron, to tide you over for, well, waiting for Space Marine 2, that is. The Warhammer franchise has been on a roll in the video game market recently, with a variety of adaptations of their IPs across a number of gaming genres, some successful, some less so. It may be all the same universe that uses the theme of endless war, but thus far there's been a decent variety of things to do. Dakka Squadron throws you into the shoes of an up-and-coming Orc pilot looking to put himself at the head of the pack, and you're going to do that by blowing up a whole lot of stuff, bullying everyone around you, and shooting anything that moves. Loyalty and workplace safety are clearly not an Orc's concern. Plopping you in the pilot seat of a number of Orc jets from the Warhammer 40,000 universe, Dakka Squadron is an arcade aerial combat game. The campaign throws you across the solar system as you attempt to rule a couple planets with an iron fist. Of course, you're first going to have to give those planets some sweet love and tyrannical freedom by taking them from the charred hands of other Orc tribes. Cue dogfighting, strafing, and bombing runs across a variety of arena-style levels. Each planet is composed of a couple missions, usually set across 2 locations, and each mission is comprised of a variety of objectives and optional sub-objectives to complete, for loot and a variety of unlocks. New jets are rewarded across the campaign, but you can also force your mechanic grunts to work overtime to throw some scrap together into something reliable. The same goes for new weapons, which range from standard machine guns and bombs to more exotic kit like tri-beam lasers. Rounding out the unlocks are various modifiers that bolt onto different parts of your plane, such as increasing your weapon accuracy or providing faster fuel regeneration. There's also a serviceable livery section for those who want to customize their planes. Options are pretty light, from the paint jobs to various decals that you can sling around your plane. You're not going to be able to make that Warhammer Tron crossover you may want, but it adds a nice sense of personality to your ride. Once in battle, Dakka Squadron's gameplay is as simple as can be. The story meanders across the solar system, from beating up other tribes to facing off against a dormant alien race, but the mechanics remain firmly in the arcade mode. The fairly large levels will have you pulling off dramatic bombing runs, protecting your troop transports, destroying enemy troop transports, and blowing up a whole bunch of stuff, usually fuel depots, turrets, and innumerable enemy warplanes foolish enough to stand in your way. A lock-on coupled with a reticle will help you keep your shots on target, while various special abilities make busier fights more manageable. The ram ability, a surprisingly useful but near suicidal move, lets you ram into other planes for massive damage. A cartoony 180-degree quick turn, looking like a jump ship straight from Hot Shots, lets you do a super useful and illogical movement at the expense of a little fuel. There are other abilities as well, and many of them are jet-specific. A little bit of light resource management is present too. Guns can overheat and lock up until they cool down, so you're going to have to pay attention to that meter, while speeding up or using the quick turn ability consumes fuel. Fuel replenishes fairly easy, but in intense dogfights you need to keep an eye on it, as if you run out, you won't be able to outrun slugs or quick turn to get the drop on an enemy. Outside of these small complexities, Dakka Squadron will never tax you, not even in boss fights. The simplicity of its design is both a strength and weakness, as you're going to be doing the same thing over and over across the entire campaign. It's fine in short bursts, but on longer missions, some of which culminate with an extended boss fight, it can get tiresome, especially with constant waves spawning in and slowing you down between clearing objectives. You see, Dakka Squadron also suffers from a common problem in aerial combat games. Most dogfights devolve into flying around in circles, while either struggling to hit an enemy that also flies in circles, or trying to avoid one that you can't shake from your tail. I eventually found the best tactic was to simply zoom on ahead, do a quick turn, and then play chicken with them while unloading everything in my arsenal. While this issue is less severe against the many basic grunts, it still exists and saps some of the wind from the game's mostly fun sails. Another area that Dakka Squadron suffers, on Switch at least, are the subpar visuals. While the Warhammer 40,000 aesthetic is on full display, this is probably not the best version to experience it. The visuals are passable, but the game suffers from slowdown and muddy backdrops. The resolution is quite low, and there seems to be variable resolution at play that can make it much worse. Coupled with no anti-aliasing, some really basic textures, and low polygon assets, Dakka Squadron on Switch is certainly no looker. Oh, and if you're playing on the Switch Lite as I did, prepare to squint a lot as the game's text is tiny, making trying to read the various mission objectives an absolute eye-straining chore. Thankfully, the game's simplistic nature makes it redundant, as you basically have to shoot everything you see. That said, there needs to be a shout-out for the writing and the voice acting. Most of the dialogue sounds like it comes straight from the 80s British punk or gangster scene, and is, I feel, probably an acquired taste for fans of the IP. What I can say is the orc voice actors clearly deliver their lines with gusto. And so wrapping up, despite its visual shortcomings on Switch and an overly simplistic gameplay loop, Warhammer 40,000 Dakka Squadron is an entertaining enough arcade game, just one that's best played in short bursts. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow.